The World of CONCACAF podcast is back with another CONCACAF laser focus. We did the other Virgin Islands. Let's do the other Virgin Islands. All right. Hello. Welcome back to the World of CONCACAF podcast. I'm Eric Schmitz.
I'm Jonathan Slape.
And I'm Donald Wine.
And it has been a minute, but we're going to pretend that it was just, take a little bit of a break.
Donald, what had happened was there was this thing called time, and it kept going.
Yeah,
and we stopped.
I've been busy traveling to other CONCACAF nations. I mean, I spent some time in Mexico. Like we actually were going to record an episode last week, but I was doing Oppo research.
I mean, Donald and I did a CONCACAF away since we recorded last. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of catching up to do, and the best way to catch up is to start, we'll just do an episode. That would help. Yeah. And the last one we had done was British Virgin Islands. So we're going to do the U.S. Virgin Islands today. And I just want to say thank you to all of our fans, our followers, our patrons, our beloved patrons. If you support us on our Patreon, patreon.com/podcacaf. Really appreciate everyone's support. I'm going to break some news that we won't be charging you for the next month. Just because, we haven't been doing much, but it's holidays. We're delinquent. So we got you. Thank you for having us. And we just want
2024 is going to be a big year for World of CONCACAF.
I mean,
we got Nations League coming up, Nations League finals.
Any Nations League year. Jonathan is actually going to make it this time. So
yes,
we're actually we got a lot of plans, but us. Will they happen? We'll see. But we're here.
The real question is they'll probably happen. Will we record an episode about them? Is the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot of catching up to do. But again, first things first, we got to do something. So we're talking U.S. Virgin Islands today. Now, if you remember in our last episode, which was last year, we did British Virgin Islands. And of course, because it's CONCACAF, we've got two. It's almost like St. Martin and St. Martin, It's the same thing, but different. Same, but different, Let's start with the country itself. And Donald, you've been there?
I've been there, yes. I've been to St. Thomas.
And Jonathan, you've been there?
I have as well, and I have also been to St. Thomas. It's the only island of the big ones that I've been to within the U.S.
Was this a cruise thing or a plane? Did you guys go there?
For me, it was a cruise thing.
Several cruises. I've been there 6-7 times.
Okay, so I don't have to ask you whose plane you took to the Virgin Islands.
No,
the boat works good. So, Donald, let's start with the country's history and some background on why it's the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah, so first off, let's talk about the actual Virgin Islands, right? There's 3 main islands. There's 50 different smaller islands that are a part of this, but there's really 3 main islands that we talk about when we refer to the U.S. Virgin Islands: St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. The capital is Charlotte Amalie, which is on St. Thomas. That is the city that I believe Jonathan has gone to, and I definitely have gone to several times. This archipelago of this conglomeration of islands has been inhabited by natives for a couple thousand years. As early as 1000 BC was the first inhabitants. But of course, this guy, you may have heard of him. His name is Christopher Columbus. He, quote unquote, discovered them in 1493. He named them Saint Ursula y les 11,000 Vírgenes, which is Saint Ursula and the 11,000 virgins. It was later then shortened to the Virgin Islands. This you may remember from the British Virgin Islands episode because this was all the same thing. The Spanish settled there first, then the English and French got there about 50 years afterwards. And then there was originally a dispute between Spain, France, Great Britain, and the Netherlands over who owned the islands. Then came the Danish. Yes, the Danish. The Danish settled in 1675. They first started in St. Thomas, then St. John, and then the French said, we want to get out of St. Croix, and the Danish said, we'll purchase them too. So in 1733, the three islands and then the smaller ones around them became the Danish West Indies. Now, in 1733, this is when they bought St. Croix to become the Danish West Indies. In that same year, one of the first major slave rebellions in the New World happened in St. John. Slaves were able to take over the island for 6 months before the Danish were able to get it back. But at a certain point, they abolished slavery. There was another rebellion. Danish settlers decided, yo, we're trying to get up out of here. Mainly because the plantations that they had were no longer profitable because they didn't have slave labor to rely on for their money. So at this point, the United States, who of course is a brand new, fairly new country, was like, hey, y'all got some islands. That's pretty cool. We might be interested in taking those off your hands. And so at first in 1867, there was a treaty signed between the United States and Denmark that said, yes, we will sell you the U.S. Virgin Islands. But no one actually did the business transaction. So they stayed in Danish hands until the U.S. finally bought the Virgin Islands in 1917 for $25 million. Now, we could talk.
That's half of Chelsea Clinton.
That's half of Chelsea Clinton. That's the Chelsea or the Clinton, but not both. But yeah. we could talk in a later episode about how the United States buys incredible pieces of land for very little amounts of money, like the U.S. Virgin Islands, Alaska, the Louisiana Purchase. All those were bought for very cheap. But we now have the U.S. Virgin Islands. The U.S. Virgin Islands are a territory of the United States. They are not a state, obviously. They are just a territory, but inhabitants of the island are U.S. citizens. However, they do not have full representation in Congress, sort of like Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Guam, and of course, where I live in Washington, D.C. However, I will say that the U.S. Virgin Islands do have more representation in Congress than D.C. does.
That's whack. But
yeah, they also can't vote in the presidential election, which I did not know either.
But they do primaries.
They can vote in primaries. They can vote in primaries, but not the actual election.
So dumb. I do want to point out, I don't like dating these episodes, but today is January 17th. January 17th, 1917 was when the deal was finalized for the U.S. to take over. So today is the anniversary that we're recording.
Happy birthday.
We did not plan this. It's just a happy coincidence.
We planned this.
No.
We forgot the cake, though. We were going to have a cake and everything. Yeah, Eric, we didn't talk about this. I didn't talk about you either. I was just saying I was going to get myself a cake, but forgot.
I would have liked the cake. But, all right. So now the U.S. owns it. So it makes it pretty easy to get there. Donald, Jonathan, you guys have both been there. I don't know, Jonathan, you want to start with like what your experience was there and about like the country and the culture. Like how is it different from other islands?
Yeah, I would say that. So when I went, I spent a lot of time in the water. Like water sports are a big thing there. The U.S. Virgin Islands specifically has some of the best scuba diving in the Caribbean, and there's several specific like coral reef parks and things like that. Then also St. Thomas specifically has some interesting ties to piracy. Famously, and some spurious ties to Blackbeard. He may or may not have, after he got pardoned the first time, and France basically gave him a license to be a pirate because that was a thing then. He may have gotten that license in St. Thomas. There is a castle, or it's a watchtower along one of the harbors there that I went to. That it's called Skeisborg, which means protective castle. But they've called it Blackbeard's Castle, and it's just part of the lore that maybe one time he looked out from that tower. There's not really anything in particular that that like ties him to that, other than like it's basically an urban legend at this point, which I'm all for perpetuating those. But no, it was culturally wise, I mean, it's tourism is a big portion of the island, and I mean, if you're there when a cruise ship comes in, it's going to be a lot of tourists around. But some great shop. It's known for its shopping in the Caribbean, which is interesting. Like it duty free shopping, great place to get a watch.
It's where I got my watches. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic place to get a watch. One of the things I didn't do when I was there, I think Donald, you said you've been by, but the second oldest synagogue in the Western Hemisphere is in St. Thomas.
That's interesting. So, Donald, you were one of those cruise ship tourists. What was the experience like for you there?
It's cool. First of all, the one thing that because I've been so many times, if you go once or twice, you don't really get the full feel of an island, especially if you're on a cruise, because you only have, a few hours at a particular destination. You can't really fit everything into one day. And, of course, Jonathan mentioned he was in the water for his time. So like that takes up the bulk of your time. So the great thing is going back several times, I've been able to do, a bunch of different things. A lot of it involves the shopping and the tourism. Again, great place to get watches. Great place to get watches. Negotiations were off the hook. There's one cruise in particular where the whole family got watches for the price of one. My dad bought a watch and he was like, I can't bring this watch back to the ship unless everybody gets a watch. And the man was like, you're right. And so all 5 of us got watches. So that was dope. I had that watch for like 15 years until it finally went kaput. Shout out Fossil. They get it done. But the one thing is I've also been able to try some of the food. And one of the things that they have that's kind of unique to the island is called fungi. It's spelled like fungi, but it's pronounced fungi. And it basically, I don't know, Jonathan, if you've seen this, it basically looks like mushy grits with okra in it. And they usually throw fish on top of it, like a saltfish or like a boiled fish of some sort. So it's very interesting. You would think it'd be seasoned because a lot of the foods in the Caribbean have a lot of seasoning in it. The one I had probably wasn't a good representation of it because it wasn't well seasoned, but a lot of the other foods are. They take, of course, West Indies. They take a lot of inspiration from India. They have a lot of curries, a lot of roti. Again, saltfish and the fishes that they use are very usually with a lot of different spices and some masalas and stuff like that, and thrown into fish curry. So the food there is very good. But
Johnny Cakes as well.
Johnny Cakes is huge. Cruise and rum. If you have ever seen cruise and rum in a liquor store, let's put it this way: if you haven't, you never went to college, because cruise and rum is all over the place. It is on the bottom shelf with your aristocrats and your bottom shelf liquors.
It's your Malibu coconut.
It's actually, it might even be below Malibu coconut. It might be on the lower shelf, like underneath the floor. But cruising has like 30 different kinds of flavor rums. On cruise ships, they really hype them up because they are American. So you can bring a lot of them back. This is one where if you go on a cruise, you're only really allowed to bring 1 liter of liquor back. But if you go to the Virgin Islands, you are allowed to bring 5 liters back. So Cruise and Rum gets a lot of business because they go, hey, we have 24 different kinds of rum. Pick 5 of them. You could take them home. So you get to have a lot of Cruise and Rum there.
All right, quick question, because everyone's got one. What's your favorite cruise and rum? Because we all should have one.
Well, no one should have their favorite cruise and rum. It's not cruise and rum is not great because while all of them are decent, none of them are very, very good in my opinion. I will say
preferred, not favorite.
I what's funny though, I never had this. I never like bought it. But I had the vanilla before. That's very good. They had a cinnamon one that was like the precursor to Fireball, like that sort of vibe. That was pretty decent, but I never bought a bottle. The one that they came out with recently was like a birthday cake one. It was absolutely amazing. It was, again, you could try a shot of it and you'd be like, this is amazing. Can I buy a bottle of this? I do not know what I could do with this. I can't put it on a birthday cake. I can't put it in ice cream. You can't mix it with anything. it's just straight birthday cake, like, flavored vodka. It was very, very good. I don't even think they have it anymore because they realized that people loved it but couldn't use it on anything.
Yeah, I'm peek behind the curtain now. I'm like on the cruising website looking through flavors of rums. Interested in the guava one. I would say my favorite rum is the white rum because I can put it in things and then not really have to taste it. So that is
The
that is
vanilla one is
my
the best one for me. The vanilla one is the best one because you can put that in Coke. I mean, everyone's had a vanilla Coke before, a Coke float, so they have that flavor of it.
Mhm.
You can put it in a Dr. Pepper, which I think is great, and I think you can put it in like an orange soda or something like that, or a grape soda, and you kind of make a creamsicle type of
Yeah.
vibe out of it. So that's probably the most versatile one, and it's like the one that tastes the best in my opinion.
Yeah, I got to stand up for the black cherry.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good
Black
one.
cherry rum and Coke. I don't think you can do rum and Coke. As far as like bottom shelf, rums. If you get your cruising black cherry and a Coke, I think you're gonna have a good night.
They have a
Also,
cruisin guava that I'm very interested in.
Mhm.
And I imagine the key lime is pretty decent as well for the
the
rum
key
and coke
lime is
situation.
very sweet. It is very sweet. I don't know why. I don't know how they
How they
got it
made
to
it so
that point.
sweet.
Yeah, it's not like how key lime pie has like a sweet but like kind of a really more tart taste.
Hmm.
That one has a really sweet taste for some reason, in my opinion. But I will say the other thing about Cruiser rum is that it is unavoidable in the same in the Virgin Islands because cruising rum there is like, I mean, it's like on the cruise ship you
Mhm.
could get 5 bottles for like $15, and that is expensive compared to it being on the island. On the island, I walked off with 5 bottles of liquor, and I think I had to break a 10. Like that's how cheap cruise and rum is on the island. But also, the great thing about St. Thomas is that they get stuff from around the Caribbean that we can't get, right? So like
Mhm.
they have the Captain Bly's, like that sort of thing. They don't have Captain Bly's specifically, or at least I haven't checked
No.
for it because the last time I went there was before I went to St. Vincent. So I wasn't necessarily checking for it. But like they had the Antiguan rums, like English Harbor, that were very rare to get back then. They have, the rums from like Bonaire and St. Vincent and St. Martin, the like
Mhm.
guava berry ones, the Aruba ones. So they have those, and because they're able to get it, easier, if you go to the Virgin Islands, you can still buy it. However, since it is not made in St. Thomas, you still can only bring one of those bottles back. But if it's a Virgin Island rum, you can bring back five liters of it.
That's interesting. Hmm. Well, as much as I love talking rum on this podcast, I feel like that's honestly what we might do best.
Oh,
We
wait,
should.
before we move on, real quick, we were talking about this before the show started, but we need to list some of the people that are notable for being from St. Vincent because there's
Yes.
there's some pretty
You
interesting
mean
ones. Now,
Not Saint Vincent? We
I'm
got
sorry,
we
Saint,
have
I keep saying St.
There
Vincent,
are too many
the
saints.
Virgin Islands.
Virgin
Yeah.
Islands.
The Virgin Islands. So I'm gonna give Slape a couple of these, but Tim Duncan is probably the most famous sports hero from St. Thomas, or I'm sorry, from the Virgin Islands. He was born in St. Croix. He most famously, he of course he represented the United States in basketball, but in the Olympics, they played against the Virgin Islands one time, and he famously sat out that game because he said, "I will never play against my home island, even though I feel proud playing for the United States. I will never shoot a basketball against them." And so he literally said, "I'm not playing in this game." And they were like, "That's cool. You're Tim Duncan. You can do that."
Yeah.
Aaliyah Boston is from there. Nick Claxton's from there. Raja Bell is from there. Now, there's one that's Quentin Coriat. I don't know if you guys know who Quentin Coriat is. He used to play football back in the day. He went to Texas A&M. At Texas A&M, he had what is what is considered one of the greatest, most brutalist hits in the history of college football. He hit this dude so hard that he like knocked 5 of his teeth out and knocked this dude out on national TV. When you look up Quentin Coriat TCU hit, it's like a grainy video, but like dude just absolutely was instantaneously knocked out from this hit. Is vicious. But Quentin Coriat was born in the Virgin Islands. Also, Robert Oppenheimer was not born there, But once he finished up with the Manhattan Project and all that stuff, he actually moved to the Virgin Islands and had a home there. And every year for a few months a year, he would live in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, others. There's just I was even just looking at the list of people that from St. Thomas. But like Rashawn Ross, who is known, he's one of the trumpet guy for Dave Matthews Band. We have Kelsey Grammer. We won't talk about his political views, but Fraser Crane over here. But it's just it's really interesting for such a small island or a small place. I mean, there's 80,000 people there. There's just so many people in either lived there or have connections to St. Thomas.
And I know a few people that have lived there because again, it's super easy from the United States, it's easy to get there. It's part of the United States. You don't need a passport or anything from here to go. And a lot of people find themselves down there because it's easy to find work, especially during the high traffic tourism portions of the year. So I know a lot of people who end up just moving down there saying, hey, I'm going to work the tourism industry for a couple months. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, like, oh, I guess I'm done now. I guess I'll come home. So it's an easy place to live, and a lot of people love living down there.
Interesting. All right, let's talk some soccer. Let's talk about soccer in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Just some general background on the organization there. The U.S. Virgin Islands has their federation. It's the U.S. Virgin Islands Soccer Association. So U.S. Visa or USVISA, or I don't know how you want to say it, but it's USVISA. They were founded in 1987 and joined FIFA in 1998. Their headquarters are in Christiansted in St. Croix. They're dedicated some values, respect and teamwork and integrity and accountability. The interesting thing for me is, and for anyone who went to some sort of business school in the US, they have a SWOT analysis on their website, which I don't know if I've seen one of those in the wild since my college classes, but they have a lot of like game planning in it. One thing I did recently see is that they are working with FIFA. Now, FIFA had, with their goal project, had given them funding to build the Bethlehem Soccer Complex in St. Croix back in 2015. That is their national stadium. It opened in 2019 officially, has their offices and an artificial turf field with seating for 1,200. So as far as small islands go, they've got some good infrastructure there. But with a federation so small, there is still the need for finding ways to grow. So FIFA selected U.S. Virgin Islands to be the first member association to partake in its capacity development program. Essentially, FIFA showed up and had met with local leaders, the federation, sponsors, just trying to get a better sense, all right, what are we working with here and how do we make this better? And since the Virgin Islands, their teams are not necessarily good, as we'll talk about in the FIFA rankings later. I think especially with, the relatively solid economy there and the support from the US, there is potential to grow from where they are now, which is, it's not a high bar to clear. As far as domestic soccer goes, there's actually two leagues. There's a League on St. Thomas and a league in St. Croix. The St. Croix League actually dates back to the 1968-69 season. So they've been playing soccer there for years and years and years. As far as format goes, the top two winners of each league actually play in the Association Club Championship, and they've been doing that since 1997. So they've got two small leagues on the two islands, and then they'll play each other for the inter-island championship every year. But there aren't a lot of teams. There's not a lot of players. Let's talk about the national teams. Donald, I don't know if you want to touch on the women's national team first.
Yeah, so like a lot of women's national teams, out there here in CONCACAF. There isn't a lot of information about them, but here's what we can tell you. They're 183rd in the FIFA rankings, and while they don't have a lot of history listed, the one thing that's kind of good about recent history is that they have one. When we talk about some of these women's teams, we've talked how some of these teams have not played in a very long time, but thanks to qualification for the W Gold Cup, which is kind of being viewed as the Women's Nations League, they've played 4 games recently, and they played in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup qualifying. They lost twice to Grenada, and then they also played the Bahamas twice. They drew, and then they won. They have not qualified for the W Gold Cup. They did not get to qualify for that. They have not qualified for Women's World Cup or CONCACAF W Championship. But I think with the resources that are going to hopefully be coming in from all of these different CONCACAF competitions that have started recently on the women's side, the hope is that they're going to get more opportunities to play, more opportunities to get better, and more opportunities for them to identify talent. Because again, it's kind of hard for them to find talent, especially on the women's side, because everyone who lives in the Virgin Islands is also an American citizen. So if they're any good, they're going to try and go through that system. So the idea is to see who they can get from those systems and from everywhere else where they have connections to try and build up their program and get more talent onto the field.
And most importantly, we need to refer to them as the Lady Eagles. That's their official nickname.
The Lady Eagles.
Now, we talk about the Lady Eagles. Let's talk about the Dashing Eagles, the men's national team. Jonathan,
I do want to give, there's one thing I do want to say. So it's not the Dashing Eagles. It is just the singular. They're the Dashing Eagle.
Just one of them.
Okay.
So it is not a.
They are collectively an eagle.
They are
one unit.
collectively a single eagle. So, yeah. So the only been around. They played their first match in 1998. That was a match against the British Virgin Islands. They won 1-0. Currently, they're ranked 208th in the world. So right there down at the bottom with our friends Anguilla. They at one point hit up to 149th, but that was in 2011, and they have since tumbled down the standings. A couple things, are just interesting. So, they're coached by a Brazilian guy named Gilberto Diamano, who has come in really with this idea. Eric talked a little bit about this, like with the FIFA goal projects, but really this idea of trying to leave a legacy across the U.S. Virgin Islands and ways they're looking to, improve the infrastructure. And they were doing a lot of this stuff during the COVID-19 pandemic. And he started to kind of really outline what they wanted to do back in March of 2020 is like a 3-phased approach that would last over the span of 6 years. So that first phase was, he said, involves in analyzing every area to become more professional. So a lot of things like putting a better administration in place, social media. They're trying to look at other national teams and trying to adapt. Then the next phase, which I feel is just a cop-out, is the analysis of the first phase and planning further adaptations. And then really they're looking at targeting really after 2024 into 25 and 26, about a full-scale implementation of the plans that they're working on right now. So really interested to see what they have planned coming through. There's not a ton else going on right now within the U.S. Virgin Islands. Of course, they're in League C, CONCACAF Nations League. Maybe there's a chance we see them get promoted. But that's really about it about the the men's national team. I will say, Eric and I, we were all talking beforehand. The team is made up of a lot of players from all over that. Most of them aren't playing full-time professional soccer. A lot of really small colleges in the United States, small amateur teams. So almost we could build a real team, fake team off of the names of teams that players are playing for within the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yes, and speaking of real team or fake team, I think it is time. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get to the game you've been waiting for this whole episode. We'll be right back. All right, it's time. Donald, get up
What?
to bat. You're up to bat. Get to the
Oh,
plate.
I gotta get back. Oh, let me get my helmet.
It is time for the greatest game in all podcasts around CONCACAF. It is time for real team or fake team. Jonathan and I have 6 teams that Donald has to hear these crazy names and tell us if it's a real team or a fake team. I think we got some winners here. We got Donald's gonna be tough sledding. Are you ready for this?
Mm-mm.
All right. Uh, Jonathan and I did not talk about who wants to go first.
I'll take first.
You want to go first? Okay, you go first.
So, Donald, the team name is Blackbeard SC.
Blackbeard SC. I am going to go. I'm going to say that's a fake team.
That is correct. That is a fake team.
The SC is what threw me off.
Well, if that's the case.
We'll see how that pans out. All right. Next up, we've got LRVIFC.
LRVIFC.
Correct.
Does that stand for something?
Yes.
LR. So it's an acronym. LRVIFC.
Yes. FC, I assume, stands for football club.
I would hope so.
VI may stand for Virgin Islands.
It might little region version. We'll go real because a lot of acronyms are used. We'll go real.
That is a real team. LRVIFC stands for La Raza Virgin Islands FC. They are also known as Castaways Soccer Club, but their official name is LRVIFC.
They should just go by that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I saw that and I'm like, man, their branding needs some work.
Branding's off.
Donald is 2 for 2.
Your next team is Unique Tropical SC.
Unique Tropical FC.
SC.
SC.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric out there for you, ladies and gentlemen, is trying to hide his face to keep from laughing. Now he's turned his video off. This makes me think it's real.
It is real. But you would be remiss if you thought that SC stand for soccer club.
What does it stand for?
Unique Tropical Sports Club. They're based in St. Croix, and they've been around since 1974.
I just want to note for the record that both of them have now turned off their videos because I don't know why. This is really weirding me out.
you shouldn't be like getting hints from us. It should really be like getting the vibes of the names and trying to determine
the vibe was in the acronyms in whatever the first one Jonathan had that I have since forgotten. Blackbeard. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up, New Vibes SC.
New Vibes FC.
SC.
Oh, so there are a lot of SCs here. Okay. New Vibes. Is it an S or a Z?
S.
I'll say it's fake.
New Vibes SC is a real team. They, in fact, are the defending St. Thomas St. John's League champions.
I should have known.
The defending
my
Association Club Championship champions as well. And the thing I want to point out is New Vibes SC. There was also previously a Positive Vibes SC club, and they met in the 2013 club championship. So there were vibes derbies.
And all vibe derby.
All vibes derby. So Positive Vibes is no longer around, but the vibes
Positive,
at some point.
You know, I feel like I've heard of Positive Vibes before, and that's only because I think like The U.S. Virgin Islands, I feel like had like one team that like dominated in like the CONCACAF Club Championships. We talked about this on a previous episode, didn't we? Like,
Maybe.
am I thinking about the same team?
I,
No, I think it was Vibe Squad. Or there was
Yeah,
also, I think
yeah,
that
you're right.
Yeah.
You're
there's
right.
There are
also
a lot
just
of
a
vibes.
vibe. There's also just a Vibes SC or FC.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was positive vibe because I remember us talking about, oh, there's of course positive vibes would like do well in this tournament or whatever it was.
It is a vibes based economy.
Exactly.
Someone said that one.
Shirt in stores.
Yes. So that's 3 for 4.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, three for four. Yeah, three for four.
Okay. So Jonathan, go ahead.
So my last one I have United We Stand SC.
United We Stand SC. You know what? I feel like this is something that like they did when like Obama was elected president or something. So I'm gonna say that's a real team.
That is a real team. I can give you the only additional information I can give you. The president of the club is Monique Chetram, and the general secretary is Dwight Ferguson. I can give you no other information about this team, except there is. So this is one of the few. There's one or two guys that actually play for or have played for the U.S. Virgin Islands that do play for this club.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they are also based in Charlotte, Emily, and they finished 3rd in the St. Thomas League last season. So there's also that. We do have some other information on it, but yes, I'm not sure historically when they came in. All right. Did you get that one right?
Yeah, so he is.
I did.
He is
4 for
4
5.
for 5.
Oh.
So he cannot beat me. But he can.
It's always about Jonathan's marks. It's always about
Yes, it is. I've gone 6
No,
for 6.
I've already gotten a 6 for 6.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
a
right.
0
It's
for
just
6.
Eric.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's just Eric that hasn't gotten a 6 for 6.
Yeah.
I'm the one hitting the median. So all right. So one to go. Waitiku Boli SC.
Waitiku Boli.
Waitiku Boli SC.
I need you to spell that.
WAITIKUBULI SC.
I'm saying that's real because you can't even pronounce the shit.
What? It's Kalinago. It's not. It's just it's a word. What? How do you know what it means? Are you saying it's real or a fake?
I'm saying it's real because only because you spelled it, and I'm trying to piece it together, and I just figured out you didn't pronounce it right. So
it's just a team name. It's just Taika Waititi.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say it's real.
All right, it is a real team. Waitiku Boli is the Kalinago name for Dominica. It means tall is her body, and their logo actually has like the Dominica flag in it. And I'm not sure. I tried figuring out what the tie-in. Maybe there's just a lot of Dominican players, but yeah,
I would
considering everything else is a very American English name. I felt it was very odd, but
I do want anyone that is interested, go check out the U.S. Virgin Islands Soccer Association. There's very few other teams, but the best thing about it is the majority of them, they do not have a JPEG image for their crest. It is the picture of a patch, or it is the picture of a terribly printed T-shirt that just has the name in there as well. Shout out Prankton SC.
Yes, Frank Dunn. All right. That about wraps this up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for sticking around. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at PodCACAF, PODCACAF. Patreon. We've got a Patreon where you can support the podcast. We got to pay hosting fees for when we do post podcasts. Really appreciate all your support. Patreon.com/PodCACAF. Jonathan, where can people find you?
At JSlape SSP, and then a bit at Broadway Sports Media.
And Donald.
At Blazing DW on Twitter and Instagram.
And I will see both of you momentarily. And you get to listen to us on Patreon. We're doing our special one more round bonus episode. We've got a lot of catching up to do. So, yeah, come over there. We're going to talk more nonsense, probably more rum drinks. So we'll see you there. Thanks for listening. Vibes.